Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I am finally sitting down to talk about some of the work of one of the all time great movie stars, Miss Bette Davis, the star of classics like Jezebel, Dark Victory, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. But right now, I'm talking about a classic black and white film that came out in 1950 that won the Oscar for Best Picture, All About Eve. This movie was directed by the great Joseph L. Mankiewicz, who directed other classics like Guys and Dolls with Marlon Brando, Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. He also directed The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, which stars one of the stars of this film, George Sanders. This movie has an excellent cast. Aside from the great Bette Davis, we also have Anne Baxter, Celeste Holm. Of course, I just mentioned George Sanders. We also have Thelma Ritter. You have a very young Marilyn Monroe before she was famous. Immediately after the opening credits, we are introduced to the main characters of the story, and a few minutes into it, we see what we have is an ensemble, a very tight knit group of close showbiz Broadway theater friends, and at the center of it all is the big Broadway star, the big actress, Margot Channing, of course, played by the great Bette Davis, who was, in fact, a great actress in real life. And here, her character of Margot Channing is basically like the glue that holds this little group of friends together. Not very long after the beginning of the film, we have a scene where we see Margot after one of her big Broadway shows, and she's backstage in her dressing room, and we see that she's kind of fed up and having kind of an attitude and just typical star type behavior, diva type behavior. And so her friend Karen sees that she could use a bit of cheering up. And so there is somebody that's been coming to the shows, and even the star Margot has been noticing her there almost every night. And so when her friend Karen says, "Hey, let me bring her out here and so she can say hi to you," she's a big fan. Pretty much from the start, Margot is very flattered and very taken in by Eve, to the point where Eve is allowed into Margot's inner circle. Not only is she a friend to Margot eventually, but also she's allowed to basically be an assistant, and it kind of rubs her longtime assistant Bertie the wrong way at times. You can tell she gets a bit jealous. From the moment she enters the film, the character of Eve Harrington is a very fun and interesting character to watch, especially on rewatches. But on your first initial watch of the film, pay close attention to this character. It is a mesmerizing performance from Anne Baxter in the role. It's the kind of role where there's a lot more than meets the eye, especially on repeat viewings. And so it's very great to see this character have a progression by the time it's over, because when the film begins, we see her kind of start out as this very kind of quiet, sensitive type and shy. And as the film progresses, we see her slowly coming out of her shell. Throughout the film, it does seem like a real friendship develops between Margot and Eve, and the more time that Eve spends being an assistant to Margot, the better she gets at her job, becoming more and more efficient in certain ways that I think Margot becomes kind of resentful about. And when Eve gets the acting bug and finds a way to become Margot's understudy for a certain part in one of her big Broadway shows, it rubs Margot the wrong way. One of the best scenes in the film is a very classic and memorable moment where there is a birthday party for the character of Bill, the director slash boyfriend of Margot, and Margot gets to drinking because she gets depressed because of earlier before the party she saw Bill talking to Eve, and she assumes that they were flirting and stuff, and because she's insecure because she's getting older and everything, and Eve is much younger and prettier, she gives her a hard time and gives other people a hard time. And that diva side begins to come out a bit, and that's where we get one of the great all-time movie lines from Bette Davis when she says, "Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night," kind of giving us a hint of things to come for that scene. But yeah, so many great things about this movie. The characters are so much fun to watch. Razor sharp dialogue all throughout the film. I have to admit, I am trying to be as vague as possible when it comes to certain details in this film, because I don't want to give away anything that'll ruin it for anyone that hasn't seen it. There is a very nice surprise at the end of this film if you go into this completely cold. But this is a very brilliantly directed film, perfectly written, acted to perfection. This has a great pace to it. I highly recommend it to anybody that enjoys a good drama. This is a 4-star classic. All About Eve from 1950. All About Eve is a classic black and white 50s film, but it is still a very famous old film, so I do think you can find it on Amazon Prime and rent it for a few bucks or something like that. But if you want to find yourself a hard copy, there might be a few still lingering out there on Blu-ray or DVD. This is my copy of the film on DVD. As you can see there, the great Betty Davis and Ann Baxter behind her there. Ann Baxter, she was in the Ten Commandments, I believe. She was Nefertari. Can't pronounce the name properly, but yeah, she was very good in that movie as well. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. If you're into the black and white stuff, if you're into movies, or if you're into the classics in general, and if you're new to the channel, hit the bell, become a subscriber. Please don't forget to comment, share, like, always helps out the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support and coming back. I appreciate you watching. Till next time, everybody take care of each other. Peace out and God bless.